Okay, so we're going to start now with Hilchas Chametz. We're actually preparing for Pesach, even though it's quite a bit away. But the Shagat has a lot to say about Pesach, and we're in about a 2-year cycle through the Shagat. So he has 2 sections on Hilchas Pesach. One is Hilchas Chametz. That's the first section. And there's another section after that called Matzah and Maror. So we're going to try to finish the Dini Chametz before this Pesach. And then we'll save the Dini Matzah Maror for next Pesach. And that way we'll have under our belt a lot of interesting limudim that have to do with upcoming Yontif, even though it's a ways away. But we have a lot of work to do. Tonight's shir, I'm not sure if we're going to end up splitting this Siman into 2 parts or not. It's a little bit of a lengthy discussion. We'll have to see how it goes. We're now going to discuss, we're just talking now all things related to Maseches Brachos. Now we're switching into Maseches Pesachim. It's a lot of new Gemaras that we haven't seen yet, and I'm sure these Gemaras that we see, just like we saw in Hilchas Kriya Shema, it's going to be the same Gemaras popping up, but taking out different ideas each time. So the first thing, the general topic for Siman Ayin Zayin is, can you do Bittul Chametz for Chametz that's not really yours? It's just that you have to get rid of it for a separate reason. For example, we're going to be speaking mostly about a case where he's watching a guy's Chametz, and he was Mekabel Achrayus, means he took upon himself responsibility for the guy's Chametz, that if it gets lost, he's going to have to replace it. That type of Chametz a person is not allowed to have on Pesach, and we'll hopefully discuss in the future shir exactly what to do with it. But the question is, can you do bittul? Right, bittul chametz, that takes care at least of the isur d'oraisa of having chametz in your possession. So would that work on such a thing? So first, the Shagat is going to discuss what exactly is bittul, and he brings the 2 main opinions are going to be Rashi and Tosfos. So Rashi says, we'll see the Gemara. The Gemara says in Os Aleph, in the Mara Makomos, so the Gemara says, B'dikas chametz d'Rabbanan hu. Checking for chametz is only d'Rabbanan. You don't have to do it on a d'oraisa level. The midoraisa b'bittul ba'alma sagilei. Because on a d'oraisa level, you could just do bittul. And Rashi and Tosfos explain how bittul works on a d'oraisa level. Rashi says, Divrei maskel b'bittul ba'alma dichsiv tashbisu. The pasuk says that you have to destroy the chametz. It's an interesting word, this word tashbisu. It means you should, it's like the word Shabbos, like an absence of malachos. There has to be an absence of chametz. V'lo ksiv tivaru. It doesn't use the more common word of destruction. V'hashbasa deleiv hi hashbasa. So therefore removing it from your heart is also considered removing the chametz. Right, so Rashi's position, it's not so clear in Rashi. It's going to be clear that he doesn't hold like the other sheet that we're going to see. But it sounds like from Rashi that this is enough of a destruction to be Yotzei the pasuk that says you have to destroy the chametz. It's just by considering it worthless, so then you have destroyed it. That's Rashi's opinion. Tosfos has a different opinion, different approach. And he says as follows, we'll see it inside. Peirush b'kontros, Rashi had explained, Midechsiv tashbisu v'lo ksiv tivaru al hashbas b'levi. Since it uses that word tashbisu, it must be you could do it in your heart. V'kashalari, this is difficult to the re, tahai hashbasa havarahi v'lo bittul. The word hashbasa means to destroy the chametz. It doesn't mean to do bittul. Ditani b'shmai says we're going to see a brisa in our sugya. Rabbi Kiva says, Ein sarach, that I don't need the drush that was said before Rabbi Kiva's statement. Harihu Omer, I rely on my own drush that says tashbisu, that it says you have to destroy it. Umatsinu lahavara shiav malacha. And we know burning is an av malacha. That's the quote from the brisa. So what we see from that brisa is that Rabbi Kiva clearly says that the word tashbisu means burning, something that you're not allowed to do on Yontif. It's not referring to bittul, which wouldn't be a problem to do on Yontif, so it doesn't really fulfill that pasuk. Va'od, so that's one question he has in Rashi. Another question is hashbisu armin lekaman me'ach chalak shehu misheshos ulamala. Va'achar isura lo mahani bittul. We're also going to learn later on that the word tashbisu is referring to destroying chametz after the 6th hour of the day. That's something we're going to see in the Gemara. I don't think we, in this year, are going to see that. We will see his statement inside at a later point. So we see that this destroying, whatever that word refers to, is something that you do after 6 hours into the day. Va'achar isur lo mahani bittul. However, it's also known, and this we're going to see later on, that bittul doesn't work after the 6th hour of the day when the chametz is already aser. So therefore, it can't be referring to the bittul, which is done earlier. V'omeri, and therefore the Ri says, the midaraisa bittul ba'amasagi, the reason why bittul works, mitam de ma'achar shebitlu havi hefker, v'yasim rishuso. After you're mevatel it becomes hefker, and it's no longer in your possession. Umutter, and that makes it mutter midikamrinan, as we're going to say, that you are allowed to see chametz that belongs to someone else or that belongs to hektish. So therefore, the reason why bittul works is not because you destroy the chametz, it's because you removed it from your possession. And the isser chametz is only on chametz which is in your possession. V'hadarim b'nedarim hafker f'nei shlosha midaraisa insar. That which we say in nedarim, that hefker needs to be done in front of 3 people, that's only a derabanan din. D'oraisa, you don't need to do it in front of 3 people, and that's why we could do bittul chametz also without having a beis din or anything like that. So that's the explanation of Tosfos. The Ran expands our understanding of Shitas Tosfos, and the Ran says in Divrei HaMaskil u mahu. He says va'afal gav de hefker, which is where, because I cut out the whole Ran, but we really need from the words va'afal gav, which is where is that? Oh, second line. Yeah, so the second line. It's probably in the beginning over there. The second line, the third way into the line. So he says va'afal gav de hefker ki agav nelo mahani. Even though hefker generally doesn't work this way, and he's going to give a few examples of how bittul chametz is different than a regular hefker. Devadai man da'amar b'nichsei didei delivtalu ulahavi ka'afra. Certainly, if a person says about his own property that it's going to be batul and it should be like dust, lo mashma dahavi hefker, that generally does not make the property hefker. V'su, and furthermore, the Gemara amrinan de mivatlo belibo. The Gemara says you could be mivatel it in your heart. You could just think the bittul. Ubevadai delinian hefker mamono hefker belibo lo mahani. Certainly, a regular hefker would not work to do it in your mind. The Devarim should believe inam Devarim, because things that you think don't count monetarily. V'su, and furthermore, Lamanda Amar Hasam ben Nedarim Alibid Rav Yossi Hefker Kamatana, according to the opinion in Nedarim, that according to Rav Yossi, Hefker is like a gift, that Mamatana Adi Isi V'Rishus Zochel Nafkim Rishus Nosein, just like a gift, it doesn't leave the Rishus of the one giving it until it enters into the Rishus of the person that's receiving the gift. Hachinami behefker, the same thing would apply by hefker, that it doesn't actually leave the reshus of the person that made it hefker until someone else takes it. V'kim shakin, if that's true, bittul chametz Rav Yossi heichi mahani bin hefker. According to Rav Yossi, bittul really can't work with the rules of hefker. V'halo asir reshus zocha, because no one took it, right? So it didn't leave his reshus yet. So here we see many reasons why a bittul chametz isn't the same as a regular hefker. Nevertheless, the Ran explains, Ella, the reason is that even though a person can't make his property hefker in these ways, chametz shangi, chametz is different. It doesn't actually belong to the person. The pasuk makes it as if it's in his rishus. Therefore, just by revealing his intention that he doesn't want to have any ownership in the chametz, that's good enough. Because in reality, he doesn't have any ownership in the chametz. This we're going to see in the Gemara later on. Is that chametz?
Yeah, it's going to explain why, because why doesn't he have any property?
So he doesn't have any property in the chametz. The chametz is not considered his property because it's asur and hana. So therefore, there's no ownership for chametz.
Right.
It's just, but the pasuk says you are not allowed to see your own chametz, so there has to be something which is considered your chametz. So it's a very tenuous sort of possession where it's considered like it's yours in order to be over the isser, but it's not 100% yours like regular property. So therefore, it's enough, says the Ran, to do like just to show that I'm not interested in it. That's good enough to make it not in my rishus. Even though something which actually belongs to me, that's real monetary value, that's really my possession, that wouldn't be enough. But chametz it is enough. Because chametz is not fully in your possession. It's only in your possession in regards to the isser. Okay. The Shagat goes on to bring some proofs to Tosfos' Mahalach. Right? Because we set it up that it's a machlokis. Rashi says it's a way of destroying the chametz. And Tosfos says it's a way of removing it from your possession. And now we're going to bring some proofs to Tosfos that it's in fact a way of removing it from your possession. So one of them is going to be Gemara in Pesachim Daf Vav Amud Beis, which is Os Beis in the Mara Makomos. And he says there, the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Habodek Tzarech Sheyivatel. A person that checks the chametz has to do bittul. And we're going to skip down to where it says Amar Rava, which is the explanation of why. It goes through some other explanations perhaps why you'd have to do Bidika, but Amar Rava, which is maybe half the way down, first one on the line is Baturin in the middle of that line. Amar Rava, Rava explains, Gezira Shema Yimsa Gluska Yafa, V'dai Ta'elvei. We're concerned he's going to find a nice loaf, and he'll want it. V'chi Mishkachas Le Liv Talei, the Gemara asks, well, as soon as he finds it, he could just do bittul. The Gemara answers, Dilma Mishkachas Le Labasar Yisura. Maybe he'll find it after the time of Isser. V'lav Reshusei Kaima, and it's no longer in his possession. V'lo Matzi Mevatel, and he can't be Mevatel it anymore. Da'amar Rabbi Elazar, because Rabbi Elazar says, Shnei Devarim Ina Reshusa Shaladam. Two things don't really belong to a person. V'asan HaKasav Ki'ilu Reshuso. The pasuk makes it as if it's his. Ve'iluhin, and they are Bor Reshus Harabim, a person that puts a pit in the Reshus Harabim. So he digs a pit in Reshus Harabim. We know that he's chayiv for whatever damages are done through that pit. It's obviously it doesn't belong to him. It's not his property, but it's his in regards to the Isser Shabo. The chametz mishishos l'mala, and also chametz from 6 hours and on. Now, according to Rashi, it's not so clear why being in your reshus or not being in your reshus should have any nafkamina for the bittul, because according to Rashi, bittul is a way of destroying something. So I can destroy something whether it's mine or not. So the fact that the Gemara is making a distinction of whether it's considered in my reshus or not to whether I could do bittul doesn't seem to work out so well according to Rashi. But the real proof that the Shagat wants to bring to this Gemara is in the continuation, which is the continuation of the Gemara in Daf Zayin. Ulabasar Isura lo matzi v'vatalei. Now, is it really true that after the time of Isser you can't do bittul? Vatanya, we have a brisa. Hayayoshi v'beis hamedrash. If a person is sitting in the beis medrash, v'nizkar sheish chametz b'soch beiso, and he remembers that there's chametz in his house, v'vatlo belibo, he can mevatel it. Echad Shabbos v'echad Yontif, even if it's on Shabbos or Yontif. Now, Bishlam is Shabbos mishkachas l'gon shechal arba solios b'Shabbos. I could understand why a person would need to be mevatel his chametz on Shabbos, because Shabbos could be Erev Pesach. That happens sometimes. El Yontif, Basar Yisuruhu. But if it's already Yontif on Pesach, so that's after the Zman of Isser. And we just said, in our explanation of why you have to check for chametz, is if you find chametz on Yontif, you can't do bittul. And here we're saying, it seems to say that you could. Amar B'achar B'Yakov, so B'achar B'Yakov answers, Hacha b'talmid yoshiv v'nei Rabbu askinu. We're talking about a talmid who's sitting in front of his rabbi. V'nizkar shish isa migulgelas v'soch beiso. And he remembers that he has a dough which was kneaded, but it was not yet cooked in his house. Right? However, that happened on Pesach. He used to bake matzahs on Pesach. So he was in the middle of baking matzahs, and he remembered he had to go to the shir. So he left the dough, and then he remembered about the dough later on. It's going to become chametz. Umisiyari shemetachmetz. He's afraid it will become chametz. Kan mevatalei mekami detachmetz. He could be mevatal it before it becomes chametz. Deikanami diktani hayoshi v'soch beis medrash. Ramina. We can make medayek that this is the case because it says that he's sitting in the beis medrash. Now, the Shagas Aryeh asks on this give and take of the Gemara, why are we asking a question from the Brisa? Perhaps the Brisa is like the opinion of Rav Yossi Aglili. Rav Yossi Aglili holds that there is no Isser Hana of Chametz. You're not allowed to eat Chametz. You're not allowed to own Chametz, but you can get benefit from Chametz. Right? So therefore, if there would be, Chametz of a guy or something like that you can feed to your animal on Pesach, according to Rav Yossi Aglili, that would be okay. So therefore, Chametz, even your own Chametz, even if you're doing an Isser by owning it, but it has a monetary value because you can use it for whatever you want. Just you can't eat it. So according to him, certainly you should be able to do bittul because it belongs to him. The whole reason we said originally that we don't allow you to do bittul on Pesach itself is because since it's not considered yours at all, therefore the bittul doesn't work, which is a little bit, we're going to have to explain how that works together with the Ran, but maybe just give me a second till we finish this idea, and then I think we could go back and clarify, because there's something here that needs a little bit more explanation. But according to Yosei Glili, since it's his, he should be able to do bittul. Now, according to the way the Ran explained within Tosfos, maybe we'll take now the opportunity to explain it. The Ran says the whole reason why a bittul works from the hefker is because of this fact that it's not fully yours. So the way we have to understand according to the Ran is, since it will not be fully mine at a certain point, if I do bittul before that point, so then I'm showing that I don't want it to be mine even to that little extent which makes it usr. Right? When the isser hits, it's going to be considered mine only in as much as that it's usr for me to have it. So therefore, if I do bittul before that point, I can prevent that amount of ownership from happening, and therefore I'm not over the isser of having chametz. Once that time hits, it's already too late, because it's not mine for me to be able to say that I'm making it hefker, even in the light type of hefker that we were speaking about within the Ran. It's too late for me to do that. So it's only in my reshus to be over the isser, but it's not enough in my reshus to do a bittul. That's the way the Ran was explaining. So according to the Ran's explanation, we can understand why the Gemara doesn't just answer that the Bryce is according to Yosei Aglili, because Yosei Aglili holds chametz always remains fully in the person's possession, monetarily. There's an isser to eat it, but I'm allowed to own it. I'm not allowed to own it. I'm saying there's an isser to own it, but I'm saying, but the ownership is not uprooted because it's usher to do anything with it, because it's not usher for me to do anything with it. It's just usher for me to eat it. Therefore, according to Yosei Aglili, a bittul would never work. I would have to do a real hefker. Just like the Ran explained, if I have something that's really in my possession and I want to be mafker it, bittul's not going to work. I'm going to have to do a real hefker, which is a different type of lashon. It's something that I can't do by thinking. It's something I'm going to have to do by speaking. And according to Rav Yossi, it could be I even have to give it away to someone else. Someone else would have to be zok on it. All of those rules will apply, according to Rav Yossi Aglili, also by chametz. So therefore, the Braisa, which speaks about a person on Yontif, sitting in the base medrash, and he's going to be mevatel his chametz in his heart, that could not be like the shita of Rav Yossi Aglili, according to the Ran. But according to Rashi, we don't have any of these restrictions. The bittul is just a way to destroy chametz. So even if I would say it's like Rav Yossi Aglili, which allows it to remain in my possession, I should still be able to do bittul, just like Rashi would allow me to do bittul, according to all opinions, before the Zman Isser, when it's in my possession, and I can do this bittul, and that bittul destroys it. So therefore, also according to Yosei Aglili, I should be able to do a bittul on Pesach in order to destroy my chametz. And therefore, there's no reason, according to Rashi, or at least the way the Shagas is presenting it, there's no reason, according to Rashi, why the Gemara should have this question at all. Right? How could it be that you said that you cannot do bittul on Yontif, and here the Bryce is saying you could do bittul? That's because we don't hold like Yosei Aglili, and it's not in your reshus. And if it's not in your reshus, I assume the understanding is that Rashi would say I can't destroy it mentally if it's not mine. But according to Yosei Aglili, it is mine. So therefore I could destroy it mentally. So therefore that wouldn't be a question on the statement of Rav to explain why we need to have to do Badika, because we don't hold like Rabbi Yosef Glili. And the Bryce, it could be like Rabbi Yosef Glili. But the fact that the Gemara doesn't approach it that way seems to be a proof to the explanation of Tosfos, according to the Ran explained that the Hefker works as that the Bittul works as a type of Hefker. Okay, so now we're going to start discussing the Chametz, which I'm not allowed to have in my house, even though it doesn't belong to me if it belongs to a guy. So let's first see, the Gemara will discuss this Isser, and then we're going to discuss whether Bittul could apply to such an Isser or not. So the Gemara says, in Psachim Daf Hey Aviz, which is Os Gimel in the Mara Makomos, Taner Rabbanan, Shivas Yamim Sa'or Limatzu V'Teichem, you're not allowed to have leaven in your house for 7 days. Matam Lomar, now why does the pasuk need to say that? V'alo Kvar Namar, a different pasuk already said, Lo Yireh Lecha Sa'ar, V'lo Yireh Lecha Chametz Chol Gulecha, you can't see any Sa'ar or Chametz in your Gavul, in your area. So Lo Yamatze and Lo Yirah seem to be the same thing. So why do I need two psukim? L'fisha Nemar, since the pasuk said Lo Yireh Lecha Sa'ar, that you can't see your Sa'ar, Shalcha Yataroa, Avataroa Shalachim Shal Gavoa, and we learn from there that the only Isser is to see your own Chametz, but to see Chametz belongs to someone else, or it belongs to Hekdesh, is okay. So Yalcha, I would have thought Yatmin, that I could hide Chametz as long as I would see it. V'yikabel Pikdonos Ben Anachri, I would also think I can accept deposits from a guy. You know, a guy could give me Chametz to watch. Therefore, I have this pasuk Lo Yamatze to teach us that no, even if I can't see it, or in the situation of a chametz of a guy that I took a chrayas for, it's still going to be problematic on Pesach. Okay, let's skip to the next section of the Gemara, which is a little bit later on that daf. Amar Mar. So we had said, Yachal Yatnu v'yikavu Pikdonos Ben Anachrim Tamalom Lo Yamatze. So we had learn from the pasuk of Lo Yamatze that you shouldn't think you're allowed to take the deposit from the guy. Ha Marta Reisha, but we said in the beginning of the Brisa, Shalcha Yatara, Avatara Shalachim Shal Gavoa, you are allowed to see other people's chametz. So what's the difference between someone else's chametz and the guy's chametz, which is deposited by you? It's also someone else's. Lo Kasha, it's not difficult. It depends whether you took responsibility for it or not. So if he has someone else's chametz in his house and he didn't take responsibility for it, so then he's not chayiv. If he did take responsibility for it, so then he will be chayiv. Ki hada amar lahu Rava of name Mechuza. It's like what Rava told the people of Mechuza. Biaru chamira devnei chela mibataychu. You have to destroy the chametz of the bnei chela, is a reference to the non-Jewish people in the city, from your houses. Since if it would be stolen or lost, that would be considered, if it was stolen or lost from you, in other words, you would have to take responsibility for that. And you would have to pay for it. It's like it's yours, therefore it's aser. So that works only according to the opinion that something which causes a loss of money is like money itself. And that's the same thing that would seem to be the logic behind why this chametz is aser to have, because it's not actually mine, but it could cause me a loss of money. So the fact that it could cause me a loss of money, it's as if I have some sort of ownership in it. But according to the opinion that says something which causes a loss of money isn't considered money itself, so what are you going to say? The Gemara answers, Shani hacha da'amar lo yamatze, that it's true, in general that wouldn't be considered yours, but here we have an extra pasuk which teaches us that there's an isser. So it's true it's not considered as if it's yours, but it's still aser. Igedari, and some say that that it only works really the other way around. It only works according to the opinion that it's not considered like it's yours, so then I understand why I need a pasuk to tell us that it's aser. But according to the opinion that says it's like it's yours, why do I need an extra pasuk? we already said that you're not allowed to see your own chametz, and there's an opinion that anything that causes you loss of money is considered yours. So then this would be yours. You don't need a pasuk of lo yamatzeh. And the Gemara answers, Itzrich, I need it. Saget I would have thought, Hol v'chi isei hadar be'enei, since as long as it's around, and it's not stolen, and it's not lost, I give it back, it itself, this chametz. Laber shusei kais, therefore it's not considered my possession, kamashmalan. And the chiddush is of lo yamatzeh, that there is an isser. So we see from here, the Shaggad says, from this back and forth with this davar hagorim l'mamon kamamon, is that in this situation, where I have chametz of a guy, and I'm going to return the actual chametz, just on the chance that I can't return the actual chametz, I'm going to be chayiv to replace it, that everyone agrees is not really considered like it's mine. And everyone agrees I need the pasuk of lo yamatzeh to teach us that it's aser. Even though it's not mine, halachically it's not mine, but the pasuk tells me I'm not allowed to have it in my house. So therefore, the Shaggad wants to say from here, logic would dictate that bittul would not work on this type of chametz. Why? Because the Shaggad already pointed out that he's holding like the shita of Tosfos, that holds that bittul is a din of hefker, of removing something from my possession. If it's not in my possession to begin with, so then removing it from my possession is not going to help me. So we just explained that the chametz of the guy that I have responsibility on is not considered like it's mine. It's just there's a special pasuk that tells me I'm not allowed to have it in my house. So to be mafker it is not going to solve the problem. I mean, it's really 2 points. Number one is I can't be mafker something that's not mine. And number two is being mafker it won't help, even if I could be mafker it, because it was never mine. So to make it not mine is not going to take care of the issue. The issue is that I'm responsible if it gets lost and stolen. Even if I'm mafker it, I'm still responsible if it gets lost and stolen. So it doesn't address the issue, which makes it usher. Plus, it wouldn't work even if it would address the issue. So those 2 reasons why, in this situation, bittul would not take care of this isser. But besides for logic, the Shaggad also would like to bring proof from the Gemara that this seems to be so. So one proof is going to be from the Gemara in Pesachim, Daf Chaf Zayin Amud Beis, which is Os Daled in the Mar Makomos. And the Gemara there says as follows: Yehuda Omer, Ein Bir V'chul. Tanya, Amar Yehuda says, Ein Bir Chametz Al Streifa. The only way to destroy chametz is by burning. You can't destroy it in any other way. V'hadin nosi, and it's a kal v'chomer. Uman nosar she'inu val yira val yamatzeh ton streifa. Nosar, which is the remnants of the carbon after the time has passed. You didn't eat the carbon in the proper time. So the part that's left, there's no isser to see it. There's just an isser to eat it. Nevertheless, the Torah says you have to specifically burn it. There's no other way to get rid of it. Chametz sheyeshro val yira val yamatzeh. Chametz, which is more chamor, you're not allowed to see it. Lo kol shekin sheton streifa. Certainly should require burning and no other way of destroying it. So that's the kal v'chomer of Rabbi Yehuda. Amrulo, the Chacham say to him, Kol din she'ata don tchilas lahachmer sof lahakel eino din. Any type of kal v'chomer where it looks like it's a chumrah, but it'll end up being a kula, so that's not a valid kal v'chomer. In other words, burning it seems like a chumrah because it's limiting my options of how to destroy it, but it actually turns into a kula as well. Lo matzah isim l'sarfu, if he doesn't have wood to burn it, yehi yoshiv u'batal. He's going to just sit there and leave the chametz. V'atorah amar, but the Torah says, tashbisu sari v'teichem, you have to destroy the chametz. V'chol davar sha'atu yochol lashbisu, with whatever you could destroy it with. Should not be limited to burning. So, the idea is we have a kal v'chomer. Chametz is more chamor. Right? So therefore, we should take chumras from nosar, which is a less chumra din. But burning is not necessarily a chumrah. Burning has an aspect of chumrah and an aspect of kula. The aspect of chumrah is that we're more strict on the limitations of how to destroy it. But it also has a kula, which is if I don't fulfill those limitations, then I don't destroy it. So therefore, the chacham say no kal v'chomer, and therefore you can destroy it with whatever you want. Rashi explains Shem lo matzah itzim yashav yivatal bitmiya. So wonder. That's what the Chacham are asking against Rabbi Yehuda. Va'aval gav darminu parak kama. Even though we said in the first parak, Rabbi Yehuda aval b'shas biru hashbasasu b'chol davar, that Rabbi Yehuda really holds that at the time of destroying it, you could destroy it with whatever you want. Gavi puksayu miyakulhi. However, in regards to this machlokis, right, when it's not the time to destroy it, it turns out to be a kula. B'mishu rotza latzis b'shiyara. If someone wants to go out with a caravan, or it's within 30 days of Pesach, so it's before the time that you have to get rid of it, in that situation he has to get rid of it now. If he doesn't have wood to burn it, he's not going to burn it. So Rashi understands that, and we're going to see this is subject to machlokes, but Rashi understands that before Pesach, the days preceding Pesach, that's when Rabbi Yehuda says that if I want to destroy my chametz, I have to specifically burn it. After the chametz is already becoming asur to own, then Rabbi Yehuda would say that you don't have to specifically burn it, you can destroy it in another way. Because of that, Rashi is presented with this difficulty in the Gemara, is the Chacham are saying that Rabbi Yehuda creates a kula, because you don't have wood, you're not going to burn it. What's the kula? That you're not going to burn it before Pesach. I don't really have to burn it before Pesach. I only have to destroy it when it hits the time where it becomes asur. When it becomes asur, Rabbi Yehuda agrees that I can destroy it anyway. So you don't really come out with any kula according to Rabbi Yehuda. I have to try to burn it with wood, and then when it comes time that it's going to become asur, I'm going to destroy it with whatever I can destroy it with. That seems to be a chumrah. So Rashi explains, no, there's a specific case that comes out of kula, a specific case where he's not going to be able to destroy it in the proper time, in other words, in the time of the Isser, because he's not going to be around, he's leaving. So therefore, he has to destroy it right now. For Rabbi Yehuda, he has to burn it, and if he can't burn it, he's going to end up having chametz on Pesach. That ends up being a kula, according to Rabbi Yehuda. So that's the way Rashi explains it. Now, according to Rashi, we have a question, says the Shagged Arya, why can't he just be mevatel the chametz? Right? Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees there's bittul and burning. According to, so if I can't burn it, I'll be mevatel it. So let's say I'm going out on the shiara, I'm going on the caravan pre-Pesach, and the only way I can destroy it is by burning it. And if I don't burn it, I'll be stuck with the chametz. That's what the Chacham are saying. It's not true, I won't be stuck with the chametz. If I don't burn it, then I'll be mevatel it. Why not? So, Shagsari wants to prove from here that maybe there's some types of chametz that bittul doesn't work on. And that's going to be the question of the Chacham against Rabbi Yehuda. We're going to be talking about a type of chametz that you can't do bittul. You're leaving before Pesach. You either could burn it now, or you're not going to have, or you're going to have chametz on Pesach. When it comes time to do bittul, you're not going to be able to do bittul on this chametz. Why? Because it's talking about chametz you can't do bittul. What could possibly be a case of chametz you can't do bittul on? Chametz that belongs to a guy that you took responsibility for. That's the Shagasari's proof that there's a type of chametz you can't do bittul. Now he brings another raya from the sugya, which is the Kav Chomer of Yehuda itself. Yehuda says that chametz is more chamor than nosar, because you have this Rabbi Watzah. But in a way, chametz is really more lenient than nosar, because you can do bittul on chametz, you can't do bittul on nosar. So how can we learn a Kav Chomer? Since chametz is more chamor than nosar, it's not always chamor. In some ways, it's more chamor. In some ways, it's not chamor. So therefore, maybe also in regards to burning, it's not chamor. You can't learn a Kav Chomer if in some ways the din which you're saying is more chamor is really more kal, is more lenient. So therefore, we could say the Yehuda himself is bringing a Kav Chomer from a case where you can't do bittul. There is a type of chametz which is more chamor than nosar. Chametz that you took as a deposit from a guy, and you took responsibility for, so you can't do bittul, and in all ways it's more chamor than nosar, because you're going to be over this by Rabbi Matzeh, and by nosar you're not, and you can't do bittul by either one. So therefore, it's more chamor than nosar. You can learn this Kav Chomer. However, the Shagasari says regardless, even if we would be able to explain this way, the Kavachomer of Yehuda is still difficult because there are other ways to take care of the chametz of a guy that you took achrayus for. This we're not going to discuss so much in this year, but the Gemara is going to speak about cases where you could give him a designated area where it's considered his property, and then if you put the chametz there, so even though you're responsible for it, but it's considered not in your property, so therefore that would also take care of this. Or you don't have that option by nosar, right? So that would be a kula that would apply to this type of chametz that we wanted to say doesn't have any kulas more than nosar. We see there are kulas more than nosar, so therefore this explanation would not really solve that issue within the shita of now this raya that we brought is really only a raya according to Rashi. Tosfos has a different explanation of the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Remember, we explained that Rabbi Yehuda held that up until Pesach I burn it, and then when the Isser hits, before Erev Pesach, when the Isser comes, then I could destroy it with whatever I want. That's the way Rashi explains the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Tosfos has a completely different explanation of Rabbi Yehuda's shita. If you look in Tosfos, which is Os Hein the Maramakomos, Yud Beis Amud Beis, Divrei Hamaschal Ve'imasai, so he says as follows. Peirush B'Kuntras, Rashi explains, Shelo b'shas biuro b'sheish, that if it's not yet time to destroy, that means in the 6th hour, u'b'shas biuro mikaveilach, but from after the 6th hour, then you could destroy it with whatever you want. Uparach, and the Gemara is asking, Hol b'shas biuro hashpasasav chol davar yamten ad sheva, that since you can destroy it with whatever you want after the 6th hour, so just wait until the 7th hour, and then you can destroy it in whatever way you want. That's what the Gemara is saying on Daf Yud Beis. This is difficult. You can't wait until the 7th hour to destroy it. We saw before, Yehuda does not allow you to do bedikas chametz after it becomes aser, because he's concerned you're going to eat it. So if Rabbi Yehuda doesn't really give you the option of waiting until it's the time of the beer and then destroying it, because you might eat it then, so you really have to destroy it earlier. So it just doesn't work out in that Gemara and Yud Beis, which we didn't get into. A further question is Shas Biur to Masnisin Hainu B'Sheish. When the Mishnah uses the word Shas Biuro, it means the 6th hour, which is when you're supposed to destroy it before the Isser comes. Rashi, in explaining this line of the Gemara, says Shas Biuro means the 7th hour. So he's just using the words differently than they were used in the Mishnah. And another issue is the Minosar Yalaf Rabbi Yehuda the Chametz B'Streifa. Rabbi Yehuda is learning from Nosar, but Nosar Achar Shiuro Tan Streifa Kavochem B'Chametz. Rabbi Yehuda, Nosar only has to be burned after it becomes Asar. So therefore, if we're learning Chametz from Nosar that it has to be burned, just like Nosar has to be burned, so it would be burned in a similar situation of Nosar. Just like Nosar, after it becomes Asar, that's when I have to burn it. So Rabbi Yehuda would learn that Chametz after it becomes Asar, I have to burn it. Not like the way Rashi learned that before it becomes Asar, I have to burn it. We've heard Rabbeinu Tam, therefore Rabbeinu Tam explains. That when you say not the time of destroying it, that's after 6 hours. Because really most people are burning it before, meaning within the 6th hour. That's what Chazal say you have to do. And the reason is because he's learning from Nosar. Which is only after it becomes Asar. But at the time you're supposed to be burning it before it becomes Asar, which is during the 6th hour, since it's only a Durabanan Chiyav at that point to destroy it, you could destroy it however you want. That's the way explained in Yerushalmi as well. So Tosfos is the opposite of Rashi. Rashi says, up until the end of the 6th hour, I have to burn it. From the 6th hour on, I can destroy it however I want. Rabbeinu Tam says the exact opposite. Up until the end of the 6th hour, I can destroy it however I want. And after the 6th hour, I have to burn it, according to the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. They both have explained the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. So now, if we go back and look at how he explained the Shagas Arya's Rayas, how that would fit according to the Rabbeinu Tam, we see that no longer any rise anymore, because we wanted to know that what's the question of the Chachamim? The Chachamim say it'll end up being a kula. What's the kula? It could just be mevatel it. But according to Rabbeinu Tam's explanation, the whole chiyuv of burning it, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is only after it becomes asur. After it becomes asur, you can't do bittul. So therefore, the Chachamim's question against Rabbi Yehuda is very valid. If you can't burn it, you're going to end up just leaving the chametz during a time of Isser. We said, why can't you just do bittul? Because you can't do bittul after the time of Isser. Right? So the Chachamim's question is a very good question against Rabbi Yehuda, according to the Rabbeinu Tam's explanation. And also, that which we asked in the Kavachor of Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda, you're saying that the chametz is always more chamor. Chametz really has a tzad of kula to it, in that you could do bittul, and you can't do bittul to nosar. According to Rabbeinu Tam, that's also not a question, because you only burn chametz after the time of the Isser. After the time of the Isser, so there's no more bittul. So therefore, according to Rabbeinu Tam, we don't have to say that there's some sort of chametz that bittul doesn't work on in order to explain this Gemara. Just say very pashas, according to all types of chametz, after the time of Isser, there's no bittul. So therefore, bittul doesn't play a role at all in the discussion of the burning of chametz according to Yehuda, because that whole discussion is only after the time of Isser, when there's no more bittul. So that would ruin all of the Shagas Aryeh's rise for the Gemara. All of his rise would only work within Shitas Rashi. And he wants to bring another proof to the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam, that the chiyuv of burning chametz according to Yehuda is after 6 hours Erev Pesach, from the Gemara in Pesachim B'daf Hey Amud Aleph, and this we actually saw already quoted in Tosfos before, but we're now looking to see this side of the Gemara. Tanya, Nami Hach, we have a brisa, Osvav in the Mar Makomos, Ach B'yom Harishon Tashviz Zarbi V'Teichem Erev Yantiv. When it says you destroy your chametz on the first day, it really means Erev Pesach, you have to destroy the chametz. Oh, Eino El B'Yantiv Atzmo, who says? Maybe it means Yantiv itself. Talmud Lomer, therefore the pasuk says, Lo Sishchat Al Chametz Dam Zivchi. You're not allowed to shecht the carbon Pesach if you have chametz. Lo Sishchat Asa Pesach V'Dayin Chametz Kayim. The pasuk tells us you can't shecht the Pesach when you still have chametz, and the Pesach we know is carbon Pesach is shechted Erev Pesach, so it must mean that your destroying of the chametz has to be Erev Pesach. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. That's how Rabbi Yishmael understands they have to destroy the chametz Erev Pesach and not on Pesach. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Rabbi Kiva says, Eino tzarech. I don't need that drasha. Harehu Omer, we have a different drasha. It says, Ach b'yom rishon tashvizar v'teichem. It says to destroy the chametz on the first day, which we say is meaning Erev Pesach. Uksiv kol malacha lo ya'asa b'hem. It says you can't do malacha on Yontif. Umatzin lahavar she'av malach. We know burning is one of the malachos. So therefore, it must be that I can't burn my chametz on Pesach. It must be referring to Erev Pesach. Now, the Gemara goes on to explain that Rabbi Kiva obviously holds like the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, that I have to destroy the chametz by burning. Because if I could destroy the chametz in any other way, there are other ways of destroying chametz which don't involve a malacha. Like, for example, that we're all familiar with, which we do on Erev Pesach, which falls out on Shabbos. Right, so you flush down the toilet. There are other ways of destroying your chametz which you're allowed to do on Shabbos and Yontif. So therefore, Rabbi Kiva, it says no. When it says destroying chametz, it must mean Erev Yontif, because you can't burn it on Yontif. Must mean he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that you have to burn your chametz. And when's Rabbi Kiva talking about? On Pesach. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that there's a time when you have to burn it and there's a time when you don't have to burn it, the time when you have to burn it would be during the time of Isser, on Pesach itself, because he would fit with the Shita of Rabbi Akiva. And the Shagas Aryeh points out that all of the Rishonim basically hold like this, Tosfos like Rabbeinu Tam, not like Rashi. That the burning of Pesach, the burning of chametz, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that has to be specifically burned, which we don't hold up, but according to that Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, you have to specifically burn chametz, is talking about chametz during the time of Isser. If it's not the time of Isser, it's earlier, then you do not have to burn it. You could destroy it in any other way. I think this is a good stopping point. We're not going to finish the whole Siman tonight anyway. So we'll stop here, and B'ezras Hashem, next week we'll pick up with more proofs, which again, his main focus, even though we've, going on tangents which are very, very important to understand different inyanim of destroying Pesach, destroying Chametz, like the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, which we now explored in depth, and the idea of how bittul works. But the main idea is he's trying to find proofs to the idea that if I have chametz of a guy that I'm responsible for, I can't do bittul. Bittul doesn't work. So for that, we'll get to more proofs to that. B'ezras Hashem next week.